My name is Rhona McLeod and I'm a sports journalist. Welcome to this special interview with the CEO of Scottish Swimming, Euan Lowe. Hello there, Euan. How are you today?
Hi, Rhona. I must admit, I'll be quite honest, I could be feeling a little bit better and a little bit happier post announcement yesterday.
Well, I interviewed you back in May on this very subject of how does your sport return? And at that point, the big question, which of course you could not answer, or any of the other CEOs of Scottish sport that I interviewed, the big question was, when do you return? You didn't know at that point. Now we have the date of September the 14th. Are you disappointed that this has gone on for so long?
I am enormously disappointed. I'm really quite angry and frustrated about the delay for a number of reasons, and that it's difficult to understand what the rationale is, if I'm honest, Rhona, for all the good work that we've put in, which I know some people are questioning how much work have we put in, but we've put in a lot of hard work, and it's not just us. It's across a number of other governing bodies that put a lot of work in here. So, and that's in around the science, that's in the protocols, it's in around some of the solutions and some of the work we've done with partners. So I find it very, very disappointing. There is a glimmer of light in there, which we will be pushing hard for. It was an indicative date, which might be brought forward to the August time. So we'll certainly be pushing for that, but bitterly disappointed, Rhona.
Well, you touched on there that you've faced criticism. I have to say, I've been looking at some of the Scottish swimming social media, and you're facing a lot of criticism. We'll come to some of the specifics of that later, but what about other sports, other Scottish sports? To put this in context, does this not also affect netball, basketball, martial arts? Are there other CEOs still in the same position as you looking at September the 14th?
Absolutely, just about every single one of them that's got an indoor aspect to the sport are in the same place as us, and all sitting there with the same baffled thoughts about what's happened here. Why are we not able to get back into any indoor activity? And to the extent, and I'll say this, that there's a solid group of governing bodies, 32 odd governing bodies came together. They have been working closely together throughout all of this, but we made a decision to write as a collective into the First Minister, and that's been done, to basically for twofold. One to say we absolutely need a clear route map, if you like, a clear path for when we might be able to get back into indoor spaces. But equally more importantly, and this is a strong message I want to put across, is the indoor sports, the indoor spaces we rely on are run by leisure trusts and local authorities. They're under huge pressure at the moment. So our plea and our request to First Minister was, please can you support us by supporting our facility providers? They need investment, they need support long term, which will allow our sports to exist into the future.
Well, when we were talking back in May, you were saying at that stage that you were going to lobby the Scottish Government to try and get the door open just a tiny bit to test the waters, really, with some of the performance swimmers, because they are a compliant group and they're smaller numbers. So they would be, in a sense, the guinea pigs to test the waters to see which measures had to be put in place. So how has that worked, first of all, with those small groups and things that have been put in place?
Well, I'll start with the things that have been put in place, and I suppose from the outset, just so everybody understands that there's the amount of work that it takes to get anything open in this current situation. It's across every industry is the same. And I'll give you an example of, for one of those centres, there's probably in excess of about 140 pages worth of documentation around risk assessment, protocol, compliance, which building staff, athletes, coaches, any of the support staff that are allowed in a restricted way in are able to access that facility. It's a very tightly controlled operation, from constant checks, from profiles, as in symptom profiles, how before you get in the water. There's distancing, face masks needs to be worn. They are effectively in very small groups. Coaches obviously all masked up, hygiene measures, social distancing. It's very, very strict. They've got individuals leading the keep. There is no stopping, no talking. They're in their minimum amount of time and back out again. It's not necessarily a comfy environment, but it is working well. So that took a lot of hard work with medical professionals, the Scottish Institute of Sport, Sport Scotland themselves, and particularly working and pushing very hard with the government to allow that opportunity to exist. And something else I just want to give up to you while it's there, Rhona, is there's been a few bits in social media about criticism about we're looking after performance guys only. If we had the choice to open up everybody, we would. It's through the government route map that they opened up the opportunity for performance sport in their phase 2. So we would be foolish not to take that opportunity because it existed. We'd be probably it's an opportunity we went for. Equally, as you said, it was part of our route map was if that opportunity existed, it gives us an understanding of what the protocols and compliance might look like. So we started slowly. We do have University of Stirling. They were huge supporters in this. So the NSA is up and running. University of Edinburgh, likewise, huge supporters. So we've got St Leonard's up and running. ASV up in Aberdeen Sports Village, huge supporters. So we've got divers, paraswimmers, and athletes in small groups, small numbers, very compliant for the very reasons for learning. And the learning has been something. You speak to the operators, and they've adjusted, understood what the new operating procedures and cleaning regimes, distancing, etc., looks like, flow of building. So it's an important first step, huge learning, and more importantly, evidences that we can actually do this. So it can be done in a safe way. We've evidenced this. We just need to be able to scale that up and get the ability to open up other pools to transfer that knowledge in.
And I think also from speaking to CEOs of other sports, they're doing exactly the same thing, that in athletics, the performance athletes are being allowed in first of all, and then, as you say, it's a scaling up process once you see what works and what is safe. I suppose one of the really frustrating things about people here in Scotland who are desperate to get back to the pool, though, is that they see that pools are open in England and they see that they're opening up before Scotland in Wales. So why the disparity when presumably the science is just the same across everybody?
This is one of the most frustrating aspects around this, Rhona, that absolutely baffles me, because I don't have I have asked on a number of occasions for what's the rationale behind the caution around opening up indoor spaces, particularly as you've highlighted that throughout all of this, we've worked very closely with the other home countries to develop any of the guidance. So we do have a lot of guidance that we've ready, set to go, which we cannot publish publicly because it needs approval at government level. But the guidance we've worked up and developed, particularly around opening up pools, it's the same guidance. It's been nuanced for Scotland. We're using the same science, and that science is probably internationally recognised science. The concerns have been highlighted from direct communication with the Active Scotland Division is around changing room spaces and ventilation. Now, we've evidenced how we can mitigate against the risk in those two areas, and it's the same application, same usage that's been in the documentation that's gone to English government, that's now gone to Welsh government, and both of these countries are now going to be able to be back in the water. England are back in the water as of last weekend, 25th. Back in July, and Wales, I understand, saw that this morning, they're going to have an opportunity again the 10th of August. So it absolutely baffles me why we can do in other countries. Ireland are back in as well, why we can do in other countries and not us. So that'll be one of the things I'm definitely going back again to government about, to ask for a clear indication of what is it, what science are you using that's different from anywhere else in the UK.
Would you consider starting a campaign like Swim England?
So it's an interesting one. I know Swim England, there's a big perception that that has been quite a successful campaign. It's just a different approach to doing things. I do recognise and welcome that type of discussion that comes around those types of campaigns, because people want to have the answers and want to know what the solutions are. But it's an option and a choice that I made, and we made as a company, not to take the campaigning mode. Quite deliberately, because a number of reasons, and that we felt lobbying was the best approach to take, working directly and working with and challenging and looking for understanding the challenges, finding solutions to some of the difficulties we might have about getting back to the sport. Campaigning will create a lot of noise, but it could put a lot of pressure on our pool operators when they actually could do without that pressure because they're financially vulnerable at the moment. So if we want to make any public concern, it would be around supporting our facility operators, leisure trusts and councils, so these valuable community assets and spaces can exist for the longer term, and that includes our swimming pools. So if we want to have a good effort and push, it would be to challenge the government on maintaining and supporting our facility providers longer term, so that we can access sport, everybody can access sport for the future, not just for the immediate short term.
We just heard that the north of England is in lockdown from the kind of family home point of view. People aren't allowed to visit each other's homes and gardens. However, they are still allowed to go to the pub and go to the gym, and you could argue what is the sense in that. But it seems very clear that that decision has been made for economic reasons. So what would you say about the economies in Scottish swimming? Could the Scottish Government be doing anything more for them?
I absolutely think so, and I think it's necessary. And if I answer what it means for Scottish swimming point first, I mean, we're one of the largest participation sports in Scotland. We're also a sport that provides a life skill. We teach people and learn to swim safely and competently. We, through working with pool operators, clubs use facilities as destinations, as homes, if you like. So they're important parts of the community themselves. They're important parts of the community for families. So, and all of these things bring in money to areas, and they also bring money and income into pool operators. Learn to swim programs alone bring in a lot of money for pool operators. We have swim schools out there who run a business out of teaching people to learn to swim. We've got full-time coaches in a number of clubs who need to generate an income and rely on the ability to be able to access the swimming pools to generate an income. All of that is at a miss at the moment, and we're not able to access any of that. So it's an impact in the if you want to call it this, the micro economy around Scottish swimming has been massive around this already and will be going forward. For our partners who are critical to us and anybody who owns and operates a pool, they've been hit particularly hard through this pandemic, and we know because we've been speaking to them directly. We've been speaking to them directly for a number of weeks about their appetite and willingness to open pools. But they're absolutely hamstrung in that because they don't have any income in, and equally it's difficult for them to open up safely with compliance. Because they're going to have to bring more staff in. Staff are on furlough at the moment. Economically and financially, it's less viable for them to open their facilities as it is at the moment around any of the facilities, any of the indoor facilities. We know that, and we've been working close to them. That they're saying they would open when they could, but it'll be staged and very slow because they can't afford to do anything else.
My impression of this situation is catch-22, because you have the small independent swim schools. On this side, you have all the swimmers who are desperate to get back into the water. And then on this side, you have the pool operators who are saying, well, we can't afford to open. And you're in the middle trying to find the solution. Absolutely.
But what I would say is we've got a lot of good partnerships across the whole of the country. And we work very closely with each of these leisure trusts and local authorities on the basis of what are the challenges, what are the solutions, how could we get pools open as quickly as we can? So we have prepared, some of the work we've been doing over the last number of months has been working up and developing guidance and support for pool operators, for our clubs, for the club management, for the club training, for school swim schools, for Learn to Swim, for general participation. So all this guidance is all sitting there ready to go, and it's been worked up with the industry. It's been worked up with Community Leisure UK and our leisure partners. It's been worked up with swim schools. It's been worked up with general leisure water space providers. So it's ready to go. It's best knowledge we've got in anticipation for when we do have a date. And from speaking closely and directly to each of these providers, we know that the majority of them, and pretty much all of them, have said we will open pools given the chance. Once we've got a date. They're not going to be able to open all the pools, but they want to because they recognise the important service provision that gives to the community. And equally, it's the right thing to do. They want to open up swimming pools, even though it's financially challenging for them. So we know they're ready to go. We're working with them to make sure we're best prepared from a club point of view, from a Olympic swim point of view, from a swim school point of view. So when we do get the option, we can work with our operators to safely and introduce aquatic sport back in to where it was. But it's going to take time. Make no mistake about that. It's going to take a slow, staged, progressive return to the sport, which we're going to have to accept.
Well, Euan, as I said earlier, I was looking through some of the Scottish Swimming social media, so I want to put some points to you, which you may have actually already now answered. But on social media, Scottish Swimming has been accused of doing not one thing to support swimmers to get back to the pool.
People are entitled to their comments, but I mean, we have worked hard and I've tried to explain that to the team. We've put a lot of work into still to provide a service, still to provide education, wellbeing courses, support for clubs, support for coaches, support for our Learn to Swim providers and swim schools. All that work's continuing to be going on whilst we've adapted some of our education programs and just general engagement. We've adapted to have to go online like everybody else has been doing. So we've tried our best to engage where we can. Trying to explain the bit which I guess has maybe not been fully understood about the lobbying, the tactic we've taken of working and pressing directly by meeting with Sports Minister, by working in directly with Active Scotland, by pushing the government and by pressing Sports Scotland, all in the back to try and get a chance to open. We've developed guides to try and get pools open when we can. But the one thing we are without is a clear understanding from the government of why we cannot get into water space at the moment. So I fully understand why people are maybe sitting there thinking we're not doing a lot. We've done a heck of a lot, but we're not alone. We're doing this alongside with other governing bodies and with Sports Scotland. We're all facing the same challenges, and right now I know for a fact we're all feeling the same frustrations, that we need a clearer explanation from government as to why we cannot open now, particularly when there are other facilities around the country in the UK opening up already.
So you've outlined there some of the work, which then comes to the next question. Why should we pay membership to Scottish Swimming when you appear to have done nothing to get our sport back? So I think you've just addressed the things that you have been doing to get the sport back. But what about the membership? Will there be any reduction of fees? Will there be cancellation? Obviously 2020, people haven't had much bang for their buck. So what are you doing about the numbers?
So it's an interesting one, that one, and what I would say to start with that one, and it's a huge, and I said this last time we spoke, is a huge thank you to our members and the people who really want to support the sport, who have contributed by continuing to pay a membership fee. A huge number of people in there, which essentially has allowed us to continue to provide as best a service as we can and where we can, given we cannot get in water at the moment. It's allowed us to continue to develop the guidance. So it allows us to be best prepared and work with individuals and support clubs and still continue to meet with clubs so we can get things up and running. And that's essentially where the membership fee goes to. It goes to supporting the services and supporting the provision for the clubs, for Learn to Swim, for all of these things, for the work we do with partnership. It doesn't necessarily pay for individuals to get into water. That's not what the fee covers. It covers the support of everything else that allows you preparation to get to the water. So that's essentially what we've done, and we've used the membership fee in that way. And I do genuinely thank people who are prepared to pay their contribution to that. If I'm going to put it in the scale of things, it works out a little bit less than £1 a week for that type of support, but it goes a long way to supporting the sport in general for its longer term health, for its longer term future. So we've been asked a question about refunds before. Right now, there are no plans to offer refunds, but we would like to try and work to something when we go forward around how do we best support those? How do we best support the sport going forward from here? There are a number of financial challenges we're facing as a company, and we need to understand what these financial challenges look like going forward, from ability to get back in the water, ability to run education courses to generate income, grant funding, which is going to come from UK and from Sports Scotland, all of that is vulnerable at the moment, given the economic crisis we're in. So until at board level we understand what the financial impacts are going to be over this period of time, we're not in a position to be able to say right now what we might be able to offer for membership going forward. So at the moment, we're not able to offer refunds, but we are working hard to try and find a way where we can maintain the longer term health of the sport and encourage people to contribute, to want to support the sport going forward by joining.
So now, Euan, I want to look at, I think, probably the most confusing aspect of all of this, the scientific evidence. I've been looking at conversations between swimmers, and even they're not in agreement. Some are saying that the warm humidity is a breeding ground for the virus or for bacteria, and others are saying that no, the chlorine will absolutely kill everything, so what's the problem? So there seems to be disagreement within swimming, but do we actually know what the science is, or do we know what the science is which is upsetting the Scottish Government?
We don't know what the science is that's upsetting the Scottish Government, even though I have asked, and I know Sports Scotland have asked. The direct response I got back was concern around confined changing spaces and number of contact points they might present, and ventilation, air exchange. Now, the guidance that we've put together from the point of view of the swimming itself as an activity, there is minimal risk given what chlorine does to any type of virus, any type of bacteria in there. It does its job of getting rid of as much of that as it possibly can. The evidence suggests that it will, whilst there's tests in there not categorically saying it will remove COVID-19, it's all the variants of, so it does a good job of minimising the risk and mitigating any risk from that point of view. The concerns I do know are in there, like any indoor spaces, is in contact points and where people come into close confines. Now, we can evidence that works. There are other indoor places that are opening, so I don't understand what the rationale is why we cannot open a swimming pool, because we can open other indoor areas. Changing room spaces is perhaps understandable because they're smaller, more confined, and you're dealing with perhaps a lot of contact points with people maybe when they're getting changed, etc. So that's a bit of a concern. But again, we've got mitigation in there through what we call beach ready, which is essentially minimum time in the change room, come ready, get changed, very minimal time in there, go swimming. If you need to take a shower, you can towel down, if not, and go. That option's there. Or if you want to take a shower, because you've been in that chlorinated area, it's a quick shower, you're generally cleansed, quick shower, towel off, go. That's in there and done, and that's being applied. That's how we're applying with the performance swimmers. They're using that approach. They're using that approach down in England successfully now, and I'm pretty sure that's what the Welsh operators are planning. I mean, our pool operators are working up on the basis of handling it that way. The air exchange is something slightly different. There is still ongoing research into the air exchange of whether filtration is needed or whether it's just large volumes of air that need to be moved. My understanding is large volumes of air, there's enough evidence in there that suggests if you move enough air around, you're mitigating any of the risk around COVID-19 transmission. Swimming pools are big halls. Indoor sports halls are big halls. They're not low ceilings. So I don't understand why we cannot, to that regard, be able to open up a swimming pool. So that's the very thing I'll be going to go back to next to Scottish Government, is to be asking them, you need to help me understand what the challenges are so I can give you the information that might challenge your science, just to try and work out where we find the solutions in this one, because it's unclear at the moment what the concerns are in my mind.
So that was my next question. What happens next? What are you planning to do to try and hasten back the swimmers to the pool?
Well, the preparation is there. We'll continue to work with our pool operators in preparation for that. We'll continue to work with our clubs and our club chairs. We'll continue to work with coaches. So we're getting everything lined up for the opportunity to get back. We'll continue to work with Leinster Swim Programmes, swim schools, so we're ready to go. All that will be set to go. But the piece I do need to do now, and I did say at the outset of this is there was an indication yesterday, that's an indicative date of the 14th of September, may be brought forward to August. So that's my drive, is to try and, I will go back to government to understand, and go back to the sports minister to say, help us, as in Scottish swimming, help the indoor sports, my colleagues and other governing bodies understand why we aren't allowed to. Where's the science? What's your rationale behind not allowing us in, so we can address those to accelerate a decision round. We can safely, competently, in compliance in place, get back to sport earlier than the 14th of September. We want to come back in August time. So that's going to be the drive from here, Rhona.
This has obviously been unprecedented. It's been a very difficult time for everybody from every walk of life. You've explained the work that's been going on behind the scenes. We know that some of your membership are disappointed and they're angry. What would your final message today be to that membership?
I'm just going to work hard. I'm going to work hard. The organisation will work hard to try and accelerate that date so we can bring that back into August. And what we really need to do now is to really need to be quite strong together and be supportive, not just for now, but for the longer term future of the sport. So please do continue to support us. And I would urge you to support your facility operators in any way you can, because these are the guys that are going to influence our long-term stability. So we need to collectively support our facility operators as best we can. I will try hard. The organisation will try hard. I know the staff are trying hard. We're as passionate as anybody is to try and get back to the pool as soon as we can, and we'll do that as best we can.
Well, Euan, thank you so much for your time today and explaining what's been going on over the last 5 months or so. Thank you.
No, thank you, Rhona. Just nice to have the opportunity to speak to everybody. We're not in this, sports in this, and we will keep looking forward to the day we make it back in. So hopefully sooner rather than later. Thank you.